Hi, I'm Olivia. My sister once told me, "You're not real family, just the one who pays for it." Then she banned me from the house our father built, the same house I helped her keep. Everyone believed her lies. I stayed quiet, until the day the bank called me owner. That's when everything changed. I pulled into the driveway with a half tank of doubt and a trunk full of reasons I shouldn't be here. The house looked the same. White siding, a flag on the porch, trimmed hedges, like it was frozen in time. But time hadn't stood still. It had done its damage, mostly to me. I stepped out, holding a small, wrapped frame under my arm. An old photo of my father during his Navy days. I had it restored and framed, took weeks to get it just right. It meant something. I thought maybe. Never mind. Inside, laughter echoed from the dining room. My half-sister Bethany's voice cut through like a knife, high, polished, familiar. I smoothed my coat and walked in. Everyone was dressed up, sipping drinks, chatting in curated clusters like a holiday commercial. But when I entered, nothing stopped. Not even a glance. "Oh," Lillian said finally, her eyes sweeping over me like I was a stain on the carpet. "Didn't think you'd make it this year." She gave a tight smile and sipped her wine. My brother Connor nodded slightly, more out of obligation than warmth. Bethany didn't even fake it. She looked at my gift and raised a brow. "Another artsy thing?" I handed it to Dad. "It's a photo of you. From your ship." Restored. He opened it, looked at it for half a second, then placed it on the side table without a word. The conversation moved on without me. That old ache behind my ribs stirred again. I tried to join the talk. "How's the new job going, Bethany?" She smiled. "Great. I'm managing now. It's a lot, but unlike some people, I don't stay stuck." Lillian chuckled, not looking at me. "Some lives are so quiet they barely leave a footprint." They laughed. All of them. My mouth was dry. I reached for a drink that wasn't there. I stood by the fireplace, watching the family I never really belonged to. They didn't see me, never had. I used to fight it. Now I observed it, catalogued it, like I was writing a field report on strangers who shared my blood. "Still working at that little place?" Connor asked suddenly, loud enough for everyone to hear. I nodded. "Yeah." He raised his eyebrows like I'd just confirmed a tragic rumor. "They didn't want me here. I knew that. But I came anyway. Because of her. Because of the promise." As the room bustled, my mind flicked back, Mom's hospital bed. Her hand in mine, paper thin. Her voice barely a whisper. "Try to keep the peace. For your father's sake." She didn't know what that peace would cost me. She never imagined it would mean swallowing insult after insult, year after year, just to honor her last breath. Every time I thought of walking away, her voice tethered me back. And each time, I wondered, am I doing this for her or because I've forgotten how to live without pain? "Don't mind them," Dad said, glancing at me. "You always were the sensitive one." There it was. That word again. Sensitive. Not considerate or empathetic. Just fragile. A flaw. Dinner moved into dessert. The cake came out. Lillian clinked her glass, calling for attention. "I want to toast my wonderful Jack," she said. "A strong man, a great father, and the love of my life." She went on, and others followed. Each one with a story. Each one full of laughter and praise. When it should have been my turn, someone else jumped in. Then another. Until it became clear, there wasn't going to be a turn for me. Bethany raised her glass. "To Dad, who always knew how to handle us. Even the surprises." Lillian leaned in, smirking. "Yes. Especially the quiet mistakes." They all laughed. I didn't. I stood still, glassless, wordless, like the ghost they joked about. No one noticed when I slipped away to the kitchen. The light buzzed overhead. I opened the tap and poured a glass of water, hands shaking slightly. I looked in the mirror on the fridge door. My reflection looked calm. But inside, there was a storm. I wiped my face, pressed my palms flat against the counter, and whispered to myself, "You are not what they say." The words weren't loud, but they were mine. I came back out, ready to leave. No goodbyes. Just exit. As I reached for the doorknob, a voice stopped me. "Evening, ma'am. Everything all right?" I looked up. A uniformed security guard was holding the door open. I hadn't seen him before. He nodded at me, respectfully. Like he knew something they didn't. Behind me, Lillian had caught the exchange. Her smile slipped. She looked at me like she was seeing something for the first time. Something she didn't understand. And couldn't control. I didn't speak. I just nodded back to the guard, then to her. That was enough. In that moment, I saw it. The shift. The power turning. The beginning of something they never saw coming. I didn't look back as I walked out that door. Not even once. There was a flicker of heat in my chest, rage, maybe, or just the residue of shame I hadn't swallowed fast enough. But my feet were steady. Calm on the outside, storm underneath. That house, those people, they'd always made me feel small. Tonight, they made a mistake. They forgot the quiet ones always notice the cracks first. I opened the car door, slid in, and shut it softly. No slam, no drama. Just me, breathing. The same breath I'd held since I walked into that house. I sat still. No rush to leave. My hands rested on the wheel, but I couldn't drive yet. When people shame you long enough, I thought, you start to believe you owe them silence. Mom's voice surfaced, not in words but memory. That hospital room. Her grip, fading. Her eyes, still fierce. Dignity isn't loud. It's just unbreakable. I didn't cry. Not for them. Not anymore. As I reached to start the car, a movement caught my eye. The same security guard who held the door stepped forward again, his posture straight, eyes steady. Then he saluted. "Evening again, Madam Owner," he said with a nod. I froze. "What did you just call me?" He dropped his hand, suddenly sheepish. "Apologies, ma'am. I thought you were briefed. They told us the new building owner drives this exact car, silver SUV, Missouri plate ending in 83. You match the description." I blinked. "Owner?" He seemed to realize he'd said too much and stepped back. "Have a good night." I nodded slowly, backed out of the driveway, and turned onto the main road. My mind spun faster than the wheels beneath me. Owner of what? I hadn't bought anything near here. At least I didn't think I had. Traffic was light. Street lights flickered overhead. A part of me wanted to call someone, anyone. But I didn't. I needed to get home, where I could think clearly. My apartment sat on the 8th floor of a quiet building in downtown St. Louis. Minimalist. Clean. Neutral. The kind of place you walk into and instantly feel peace. I locked the door behind me, kicked off my heels, and set my purse down. The silence wrapped around me like a blanket. No voices telling me I was too much, too little, too late. I walked barefoot to the kitchen, poured a glass of red, then made my way to the desk by the window. The city lights glowed below. I opened my laptop, entered a password only I knew, and clicked into a secure folder labeled Holdings. There it was. The list. A dozen properties, spread across Missouri and Illinois. All under a shell firm I created years ago. Not under Georgia. No, that name was too easy to trace. The documents bore another name, a trust name. One they'd never connect to me. I clicked one entry. Property ID 1762B, Lillian Sweets. I almost choked on my wine. Lillian. My stepmother's name now stood on a building I owned. I didn't name it. It must have been a placeholder. Or a joke. I picked up my phone and dialed. My assistant answered on the second ring. "Did we finalize the St. Louis development?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "Yes, ma'am. Closed yesterday. The staff transition's complete. No public records in your name." "Good. And the property adjacent to Forest Glen Drive?" She hesitated. "You mean near your father's?" "Yes. Also yours now." "Quiet deal. Nobody knows." I exhaled through my nose. Not quite a laugh. More like a release. "Make sure the staff are trained. I want no leaks. I'm not ready for the family to connect the dots." "Understood." I ended the call, leaned back, and let the moment settle. They called me invisible, useless, a burden. And all the while, I'd been buying the land under their feet. 12 years of long nights, freelance contracts, consulting gigs, saving every cent. I built my firm slowly, brick by digital brick, while they laughed at me across dinner tables. Now, they didn't even know I existed. Not the real me. I was still staring at the screen when my phone pinged. A photo. Bethany. She stood in front of a newly renovated building, posing with a clipboard and too much confidence. Caption: "Guess who's pitching her event company to this new owner? LOL. We'll own this block soon. I stared, then smiled. Not a nice smile. I zoomed in on the building behind her. My building. She had no idea. Not yet. I could call her. Tell her the truth. Watch her stumble, stutter, scramble to reframe the narrative. But where's the fun in that? No, I'd let her spin her plans. Let her feel smart, powerful, inevitable. Let them all build their arrogance like a house of glass. And when the time was right, I'd be the stone. I parked 2 blocks away and walked onto the site, pretending I was just another consultant. The afternoon sun lay low, casting long shadows over the half-finished buildings. I held my breath, my staff behind me, masked as assistants. In my mind, a quiet taunt, let her arrogance meet my silence. Inside the trailer office, Bethany paced, phone to ear, rolling her eyes at staff. She was loud, boasting, entire room orbiting her ego. She didn't see me slip in behind a glass door. I watched from a corner, dressed down but poised, and nobody asked questions. She launched into her pitch, how her events company would elevate the new complex, how she understood the elite, the aura, the vibe. She talked about people who built things from nothing, and my pulse fluttered. She didn't know she was praising me. She didn't know who I was. I asked a question about logistic flow, then another about long-term maintenance. Her answers floated in ambiguity. As staff exchanged glances, I filed notes, each crack in her plan. Because business is less about sound and more about substance. She said, we know how to impress wealthy women who built things from nothing. She smirked. I caught that line twice. The irony cut deeper than knives. The property manager cleared his throat. Bethany stepped away to take a call. The manager leaned toward me and asked, do you want me to call off the rest? His voice was low. I shook my head. I wanted it all to play out. Let her arrogance bloom, then wilt. Flashback, Thanksgiving dinner, 10 years ago. Bethany stood in the center of a room full of relatives, mocking me for choosing a quiet path, too scared to chase big things. She laughed. Everyone clapped. I forced my lips to stay closed. I whispered in my mind, this time, I won't need a voice. When Bethany returned, she found me watching. She paused, confusion flickering in her eyes. I gave her nothing, just a steady look. Later, I offered structured feedback. Praise where it was due, layout, themes. Criticisms tied to flaws she dismissed as small details. I handed her a professional, polished critique. She didn't sense the trap. That night I drafted a rejection email. I wrote, thank you for your thoughtful presentation. After careful review, your proposal does not meet the necessary logistical benchmarks. Please feel free to submit anew in future cycles, feedback attached. The words were polite. The cut, precise. My assistant hovered, finger over send. I nodded. Send it. Let integrity be my drama. It left me unsettled, but resolved. At dawn, my phone lit up. Bethany posted an Instagram story, smiling wide, in front of the building I owned. Caption, meeting went amazing, fingers crossed for full contract. Manifesting greatness. I stared at her face under the building sign, my sign. She had no idea. Not yet. I closed the app. My heartbeat slowed until it felt like a drum. They welcomed me back into their orbit, unaware I already held the center. Back at the office, I dropped my bag on the leather chair and stood for a moment, hands braced on the edge of the desk. The hum of the city outside didn't match the weight I carried inside. Bethany's pitch replayed itself in my mind like an unwanted voicemail. Each boast. Each glossed over detail. Each moment she looked around the room and assumed she was the most powerful woman there. She thought she pitched to the wrong person. But she pitched to me. I pulled out the legal pad from earlier. My notes were precise, every question she dodged, every corner she cut. She smiled through it all, but I'd seen the way her eyes faltered the second I pressed for real answers. The mask slipped. If only for a second. I opened the drawer, pulled out a small, worn frame, and looked at the photo inside. Grandma Clementine. Always stern in pictures, always soft in voice. I remembered what she once told me after I came home in tears in high school, they can dress up superiority, Georgia, but truth don't need polish to shine. I sat back, just stared at her for a while. My phone buzzed. It was Melanie, my assistant. Reminder, dinner reservation in 45. Want me to cancel? I hesitated. Then replied, "No. But I'm going alone." I changed into dark jeans and a navy blouse, nothing fancy, just enough to look like I belonged anywhere. Not loud, not invisible. Just present. The restaurant was one I used to go to with my mother. Small. Tucked behind a florist shop. Same hostess still worked there. I nodded, she nodded back. Familiar but detached. I asked for a private table near the wall. 15 minutes later, Bethany and her husband strolled in. Loud, polished, confident. Of course. I didn't look their way. But they saw me. The pause in her step gave it away. "Oh hey," she said, walking over like it was a school reunion. "Didn't expect to see you here. You should join us." Her voice dripped with performative warmth. I smiled. "No thanks. I already ordered." She chuckled, then motioned to her husband. "We're celebrating a small win. Big presentation earlier today." I just nodded. "Hope it went well." Bethany leaned in, lowering her voice like we were sharing secrets. "We may be booking a whole complex soon. Fingers crossed," she laughed. "Maybe you can host our next big thing in your little building." I looked up. "I prefer clients who understand value." That caught her off guard. She blinked, laughed it off. "Oh Georgia," always with the deep lines. Inside, I could feel myself tensing. I reminded myself not to snap. That wasn't my power anymore. Then the lights dimmed slightly. The manager announced a small local art tribute, portraits of community figures who shaped the neighborhood. My eyes landed on one frame across the room. The lighting hit it just right. I didn't need to get closer to know the face. Grandma Clementine. I stood and walked to it. My shoes barely made a sound. I reached out and touched the bottom corner of the frame. Her name, etched into the plaque below, read, "In honor of Clementine Ellis, backbone of the East Side." Bethany followed my gaze. She froze mid-sentence. That silence? That pause? That was the sound of realization beginning to crawl in. They had placed her there. Someone saw what we always knew but were never allowed to claim aloud. As I returned to my seat, Bethany was quiet. For once. I finished my drink, then stood. "Thank you for the meal," I said, glancing at them. "Next time, I hope you remember to use my name." I walked out without another word. The night air hit me like an exhale. My phone buzzed again. Melanie's message read, "Survey results confirmed. No local objections filed. It's clear." I paused by my car. Through the restaurant window, Bethany was still watching. I didn't wave. I didn't nod. I just let her watch. She didn't know I was holding all the cards now. But she would. I slid into the driver's seat, the engine purred to life, and just as I shifted into gear, another notification lit up the screen. Unknown number. One photo. One message. It was the portrait of Grandma Clementine. The caption read, "You left your grandmother framed in public. People saw. Big day tomorrow." I stared at it. My fingers paused over the screen. Tomorrow, I wouldn't just walk into the spotlight. I'd own it. The loft was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that makes you hear your own thoughts echo back at you. I sat on the couch, the soft hum of the city outside barely touching the space. My laptop screen glowed faintly, the rejection email to Bethany's company still open. I reread it, line by line. Polite. Precise. Final. For a moment, I wondered if I'd gone too far. Then I remembered her face, the laughter, the condescension, the way she always assumed I'd stay small. That thought was enough to quiet the guilt. My mother's voice drifted up from memory, soft but clear. "Don't let them clip your wings, baby. You were meant to fly above their noise." I looked at the framed photo of Grandma Clementine and the handkerchief embroidered Gigi sitting beside it. I rubbed the fabric between my fingers. Strength seemed to live in its threads. My phone buzzed. Lillian's name. I stared at the screen, then turned it face down. I wasn't ready. Not tonight. By the time evening settled, I gave in and called her back. I thought maybe, it was about peace. It wasn't. Her voice came sharp through the line. "You embarrassed me, Georgia. You made me look like some kind of fool in front of everyone." I didn't answer. "You stormed out of the dinner, you insulted your sister with that attitude. You think you're better than the rest of us now, don't you?" I didn't say a word, I replied quietly. "That's worse," she snapped. "That silence of yours, it's judgment. It's arrogance." I let the words hang there. Years ago, I'd have argued, explained, begged to be understood. Now I only asked, "Why does my silence bother you so much?" She went quiet. I could hear her breathing through the line, uneven. When she finally spoke, her tone shifted from anger to control. "You always wanted attention, Georgia. Even when you pretend you don't." That cut deeper than she knew. Because I never wanted attention, just peace. After she hung up, I sat for a long time staring out the window. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and red. A flash memory hit me, teenage me, standing in our old kitchen, holding up a report card, hoping she'd say I'm proud. Instead, she said, "Don't expect applause for doing what you're supposed to." The phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a call. It was a notification from the family group chat, a message from Lillian. "Georgia is not part of this family anymore." I blinked. The words were plain. Final. No hesitation. Underneath, a list followed: cold, distant, ungrateful. Then the replies started rolling in. Little thumbs up emojis. Heart reactions. Bethany's name, right there. I read it twice, then put the phone down. My chest felt tight, but my face stayed still. I opened the messaging app, started typing a response: "I live by truth, not whispers." Then I deleted it. They didn't deserve my breath yet. I turned back to my desk and opened my laptop. The screen came alive with spreadsheets, property maps, documents, the foundation of my quiet empire. I began drafting a proposal under the Clementine name, a community project to fund women-owned small businesses. Legacy, not revenge, would be my answer. Still, the ache wouldn't leave. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. I remembered Thanksgiving years ago when Lillian switched my seat at the table, saying, "You don't mind sitting with the kids, right?" That sting had followed me into adulthood. For a second, doubt crept in again. Did I provoke this? Am I somehow responsible for their resentment? Then another thought came, calm but fierce: no. I just stopped apologizing for breathing. I shut the laptop. The decision was made. They could exile me all they wanted. I had my own country now. But peace lasted only a few minutes. My phone buzzed again, a different tone this time. Social media alert. Bethany had posted Lillian's message publicly, captioned with laughing emojis. And underneath, comments poured in: sympathy for her, judgment for me. Then, one comment caught my eye. Funny, it read, "Raven owns half the block she's pitching on." My breath stopped. Raven, my alias. Someone had connected the dots. The secret I'd built over 12 years had just started to leak. I stared at the screen, heartbeat steady, not racing, just aware. They wanted to erase me, I whispered to myself. They forgot I built the ground they're standing on. I sat at my desk before dawn, silent. The email chains between Bethany, Lillian, and me glowed on the screen, each line a reminder of how they saw me, as a nuisance at best. My fingers hovered over reply, but I didn't send. I let it linger. Instead, I logged into the collaboration portal. My heart stuttered. My account had been stripped. No architect rights. No comments. My designs, locked away. Shock hit first. Then a strange peace. They hoped I would vanish. Well, I wouldn't. I opened a blank document and began drafting legal notices. The echoes of Mom's voice came back: "Stand your ground." I held that in my bones. Later, Lillian's lawyer called. "Ms. Raven," he said, "you don't really need the property. It's symbolic. It's ego. You could walk away." I listened. My voice steady: "Ego built empires. Let's talk substance, what your claim is." He paused, then warned, "Be careful. Some fights ruin more than reputations." I closed with, "Call that what you want. I call it offense to injustice." I stepped aside, then reopened the portal. My architect access was gone, replaced by Cassian's team portfolio. Files were shifted. Comments disabled. Metadata dated at 2 hours ago. I remembered when Mom said I'd always paint in the margins. It stung. But I thought, they can revoke my access. They can't revoke my mind. I took screenshots, saved logs. Evidence. At a quiet cafe, I met Mars, my lawyer. We laid out both insults, lawyer's call, and locked designs. He nodded. "We'll issue notice. File injunction." My chest tightened with fear, of exposure, backlash, but the resolve grew louder. I whispered, "They want me silent. They forgot I know how to speak through law. I walked out to the street, phone in hand. A new text: "If you push this further, we'll show everyone who you really are." I didn't flinch. My pulse steadied. They threatened to shatter my mask. What they didn't know, I built it. I stared at my reflection before stepping into the gala. The mirror framed the same face, controlled, composed, but I felt every crack behind it. They called me heartless, cold. Tonight I would show them something harder. My assistant, Mars, reminded me quietly, family would be there. Cassian's firm would be there. Everyone I cut out would be watching. I nodded. The black gown I wore felt like armor. I paused in front of the mirror, fingertips brushing the GG handkerchief pinned inside my clutch. "You've survived worse storms," I murmured. With that, I walked out. The ride downtown was quiet. My mind rehearsed responses, calm, firm, inevitable. Inside the ballroom, light glowed over polished marble and floral centerpieces. I entered without fanfare. Bethany and Lillian were there, draped in silk and confidence. They smiled too sharply at me. The crowd mingled. Waiters offered champagne. A projection screen descended and started cycling through sponsors and contributors labeled in small text. I held my breath. Then my face appeared, caption: "Philanthropy Guest Donor, Anonymous." I felt the room shift. Murmurs rolled across tables. Bethany's smirk widened. Lillian turned toward me, voice loud: "She's always needed attention, even when she hides her name." The laughter followed. Wine glasses clinked. I sat perfectly still, wine in hand, eyes steady. They wanted me to flinch. Tonight, I would not. Minutes later, the host paused. A correction flickered on screen: "Correction, ownership of this venue has recently changed hands. The new owner is Ms. Georgia Raven." The room stilled. Guards at the door snapped to attention, saluting me. I rose, keeping my expression flat, but inside, satisfaction bloomed. I nodded to the host: "Proceed." Lillian's face drained. Bethany dropped her glass with a soft crack. The hum of conversation turned to gasps. Respect was never given, it was reclaimed. I slipped into the women's lounge. In front of the mirror, I pressed a towel to my face. A single tear threatened. I blinked it away. My grandmother's words echoed: "Silence doesn't mean weakness, it's the pause before thunder." I smoothed down my gown, fingered the GG handkerchief again. Across the glass, I met my own eyes and saw a woman who no longer needed to justify herself. Returning to the ballroom, I passed through clusters of guests. Their gazes changed, tentative, reverent. Some reached out to nod, others slipped apologies in whispers. I answered compliments with measured brevity. Truth has its own rhythm. No louder, no softer. Just clear. As I moved toward the exit, Cassian's voice cut in behind me: "Congratulations, Madam Owner. Enjoy it while it lasts." He handed me an envelope sealed in black wax: "Board meeting Monday. You'll want to see the agenda." I turned, met his gaze. My pulse steadied. Victory had a price. I accepted the envelope. The mask was off. I had stepped into the mirror. Now the real test would come. I arrived at the courthouse just as morning light broke over the columns. The portrait of my grandmother, the one I carried in my arms, was tucked under my coat. I walked into the lobby and placed it on an easel beside the registration desk. Before anyone could protest, cameras and staff shifted their gaze. Family members in suits glanced over, eyebrows rising. I didn't smile. Inside, I thought, they cast shadows on her memory. Today, I put her in the light. Mars stood beside me and whispered legal notes, timelines, precedents, our claim. When the judge entered, we presented our injunction. I remained composed, not flashy, just firm. The portrait watched over the room like a silent witness. After court, we moved to the boardroom at the old family estate. Cassian, Lillian, Silas sat across the table, faces brittle. They expected meekness. Instead, I walked in ahead of staff, security at my back, no knock. I paused. Then said, "Clear, I don't need an invitation. I own this property." Gasps filled the room. Cassian sputtered. Silas's face whitened. I clicked to display the legal notice, then successively showed memos validating the deed under my trust name. The power had flipped, Everyone knew it. Next, I asked to inspect the safe room. Mars and I entered. Cassian's CFO objected, but the court order overrode him. In the steel-lined chamber, we found ledgers hidden behind false panels, contracts signed under aliases, backdated deeds, forged names. I felt my breath catch when I saw Maribel's handwriting on one. Metadata confirmed it: timestamps, edits, author logs. I photographed, copied, locked away the proof. Inside, they built a lie. Now I unmask it. Later, in the main boardroom again, I addressed the board. I would assume full control, but offered a transparent audit for fairness. Some directors shifted slightly closer, a sign of allegiance. Lillian, trembling, confronted me. "You'll regret this." I looked at her coolly. I already was regretted. Now I'm in control. I exited with the portrait under my arm, walking to the grounds. Rain began softly, misting over the lawn and facade. I paused by the old family tree statue, hands on its carved base, and whispered, "Our roots are stronger than their lies." As I headed to my car, the guard from earlier stood waiting. He handed me an envelope. I opened it. Inside, a photo of Amara at school. Beneath, "Be very careful what you expose." My jaw clenched. I froze in the driveway, heart pounding, not with fear, but fierce protectiveness. They threatened what I love most. They'd never control me. But they might try to break all I built. The sun hung low behind the civic hall, casting long shadows across the freshly polished steps. I stood behind the podium, hands steady, voice prepared, but heart still cautious. The dedication plaque shimmered to my left: Raven Community Center, in honor of Eloise Raven. Her name, finally where it belonged. I glanced at the crowd: board members, city officials, press, and beyond them, my family. Cassian and Lillian stepped forward unexpectedly. Their expressions were somber, stripped of the smugness they once wore like armor. The microphone crackled. "We owe Georgia an apology," Cassian said. "For misjudging her intentions, for concealing truths, and for failing to understand the legacy she carried." Lillian added, quieter, "We acted out of pride. Not purpose." The audience murmured. I didn't flinch. I nodded once and said, "Thank you." No performance. No tears. Just truth. Inside, I whispered to myself, forgiveness isn't owed. But sometimes, it's necessary, to free yourself. That night, back at home, I poured 2 glasses of water and sat across from Amara at the kitchen island. She swirled her fork in pasta but didn't eat. "Are you scared they'll come at you again?" she asked. I looked straight into her eyes. "Everything I did, every risk I took, was to protect you. To give you a name they couldn't touch. A future they couldn't stain." I opened the folder beside me. The deed transfer. I handed her the pen. "It's yours now. Everything. I trust you'll know what to do with it someday." She looked stunned. "But I don't want it unless you stay." "I'll always stay," I said, placing my hand over hers. "But legacy isn't about what we take. It's about what we leave, unbroken." She leaned over and hugged me. I held her for a moment, feeling the years of weight loosen at the seams. Later, I returned to the study. The portrait still sat on the mantel, where I'd placed it weeks ago. Something about the back felt heavier than usual. I turned it over, and found the envelope. Yellowed edges, familiar script, my grandmother's. I sat down slowly and opened it. Inside, her handwriting, curved, precise. "If you're reading this, you already know the cost of dignity. And I hope you've discovered this truth: power means nothing if it's used to control. It only matters when it lifts others. If you've made it here, you haven't won against them. You've won for yourself." I didn't cry. Not exactly. But my face felt wet. I sat for a long while, letter in hand, portrait beside me, finally understanding that I'd been fighting for more than control. I was rebuilding what they tried to erase. Before dusk turned to night, I walked out back. Letter in one hand, photo in the other. I settled beneath the old oak, where the soil had swallowed decades of our family's history. Amara ran in the grass nearby, barefoot, free. The wind rustled the leaves gently. "They called me useless," I whispered. "But I became the reason this family still has a name worth saying." As we left, I passed through the front gate. The same security guards who once looked through me now stood taller and saluted with calm respect, not out of fear, but recognition. In the car, my phone buzzed. An email. Subject line, Board Summit, NYC, Keynote Opportunity. It wasn't a request. It was an invitation to lead. I folded the letter and slipped it into my coat. Then I smiled, turned the ignition, and whispered, "The past is no longer my shadow. It's now just a page."